Welcome to this video. I wanted to spend just a few minutes introducing another document. This one's titled Prevention Tools, What Works and What Doesn't, from Washington State. It's a little bit unusual to introduce a document from the West Coast in a North Carolina training, but I really wanted to take time to do so, to encourage you to read this. Many of the items inside the document talks about best practices in general that we know that works in prevention practice, and some things that really don't. And you will find interconnections between conversations we have during the live webinar in a couple of weeks, and other documentation you read that we will be providing. And again, I will not read this document to you. I'm going to ask you to read it before we attend the online sessions in terms of the live webinars. But I do want to point out just a few items. Again, this document is primarily focused at youth prevention. Let me make this a tad bit smaller. And off the bat, introduces what works. And we basically, we base a lot of our work in prevention practice on evidence-based programs, evidence-based research. What that means, there's a body of knowledge in another setting that indicates X intervention or X activity, X curriculum has been effective in reducing certain intervening variables or certain conditions with our youth, or with the population in general, but in this case, it's with our youth. And one of the primary registries out there is most certainly blueprints. We have citations for blueprints within our youth prevention education listings in terms of approved curriculums. So Blueprints has been around for a long time. Blueprints collects research, best practices about curriculums, and helps to rank them in terms of promising or effective, or using other descriptors. Blueprints is from, I think, University of Colorado, if I'm not mistaken. If we scroll down for this particular document, additional sources are provided. We start talking about effective prevention strategies for children, for adolescents, and for families. Again, I ask everyone to read this material. It really serves as a foundation to many of the concepts that will be introduced during the two-day event that we will be together, or we will be virtually together, that is. It has a really good summary of what does work with prevention, especially with youth, of course. Then part 2 of the document is what doesn't work in prevention, and some of those strategies and activities that actually may increase risk and may increase risk-taking and so forth. And many of these doesn't work activities we may take for granted as actually working in local communities. For example, fear techniques, or in this case, scary images and scare tactics. We know that doesn't work with youth. We have multiple decades of research that says it really doesn't work. Youth realize that it's a misappropriated message. Other examples, one-time assemblies and events. There's very little evidence out there that collecting a group of students for one time, talking about drink driving or some other negative action that causes consequences is positive. That has very little research behind it as well. Personal testimonies from people in recovery. That tends not to work with adolescents as well. And if you notice, each of these items has numbers inside of each. Of course, those numbers are your citations, And you can refer back to the reference list in the back of the document to learn for some of these best practices and meta-analysis. Meta-analysis is when we take large bodies of research, usually dozens and dozens of research studies on the same or similar topics, and try to analyze what the outcomes were across the board. Let's see. Mock car crashes tend to be popular in some of our communities. We know that those types of activities and portrayals have very limited effectiveness as well. It may actually do the opposite. We have reinforcing exaggerated social norms. I will let you read about that. Trying to poke holes in individuals' arguments or the truth effect or myth busting has limited effect. We know that knowledge-based interventions by themselves that don't ask for some personal reflection and action has very little effectiveness. That's why with your YPE programs, many of your YPE programs that are based on really good research not only have a educational component, but they also have a hands-on component and conversation component and a component that asks students to implement these skills, in their everyday activities and lives. That's so important. Role plays don't work very well. Applying to morals, putting at-risk group together has very limited effects as well, and so forth. So again, this is your bibliography, your references. So if you have questions and want to learn more about a particular what works section item or what doesn't work section item, you can look it up, and I encourage you to. The majority of these are available, as you can tell, online or with other public or governmental resources, or if you're trying to find a resource, a citation, and you're having trouble getting your hands on that, just let us know. We'll be happy to help you obtain the material or refer you to individuals or locations or libraries where it is available. That's one of our roles in terms of training and technical assistance. So I do encourage you, please take a few minutes to read this document. It's really important. It'll give you a better foundation and framework for some of the topics that will be coming up later. Thank you so much for watching, and take care.